February 22nd, Portsmouth Town Council meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd also like a moment of silence for those involved with Parkland, Florida. Thank you. Before we begin, I do have a correspondence from CAST. It's from Lorraine Call, thanking the council and for their appreciation for supporting CAST in applying for the Drug-Free Communities Grant. I want to share that with everyone. I do not see anyone signed in for public comment, so we'll begin with the February 8th minutes.
Make a motion to accept the minutes from February 8th, 2018 as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to payroll warrant number 32.
Make a motion to accept payroll warrant number 32 in the amount of $38,838.86.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to payroll warrant number 33.
Make a motion to accept payroll warrant number 33 in the amount of $39,050.92.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to general warrant number 16.
Make a motion to accept general warrant number 16 in the amount of $94,358.74.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to general warrant number 16A.
I make a motion we pay general warrant 16A in the amount of $316.67.
Sure.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to the monthly reports for January.
Make a motion to accept the monthly reports from Building and Zoning, Finance Department, Human Services, Police Department, and Tax Assessor as presented.
Second.
Discussion. I do not have a copy of the police report. I'm not sure if there was.
I gave it to you before, and maybe so you can
Oh.
remember to put it on, not to
And
put
I
it on.
have it. Thank you. See, I didn't remember. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to old business. At a previous meeting, we appointed Mr. Rogers and Mr. Dillon to the International Association of Firefighters Union Local number 343,422 for their negotiations. Mr. Rogers and Mr. Dillon are now, have too much on their plate and have withdrawn, so I'm looking for 2 new council members that would be willing to negotiate.
I don't think there's a lot left. I guess one would be me.
Thank you, Mr. Stone.
Do we know what nights they're going to meet?
No, I think that's determined as a group.
Are you looking at me like?
No, you asked the question, so I'm looking at you to answer the question.
I will.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to appoint
Make a
Cheryl?
motion to appoint Cheryl Hawes and Chris Stone to the committee to negotiate the contract for the firefighters local union 3422.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Chris and Cheryl. Moving on to the Route 94 recreational field, we wanted an update. I'm not quite sure where we stand right now because we've had some influx.
Well, basically, to put it in a nutshell, we were waiting for it to settle, and I've been taking shots from a year up until present. I took a few shots a couple weeks ago with the former DPW director who's no longer here, and what I was waiting for was a new one to start, which started today. So basically, we asked for a 1-year extension because we assumed we were gonna get some settling. And we've actually had a total of almost 2 feet of settling in that period of time in a little over a year. It settled another 6 inches from when I went out there to the time I previous checked it about 8 months prior to that. Originally, it settled almost 1.5 feet, and it has slowed, and it has settled another 5 to 6 inches since then. Hopefully, the settling is done. If it had moved forward as originally planned, we would have had a serious problem with home plate being close to 2 feet lower than outfield, and plus some other small areas. So knock on wood, we'll get an estimate. We're gonna have to bring in fill now. My estimates are about 800 to 1,000 yards to make up that difference of loss where it's settled to get to subgrade. And I'm just gonna confer with that on the new DPW director when he starts, hopefully this week. And we can move to put the RFP out before the season starts. It should fall into place pretty good when most of your construction and loom work and stuff isn't done until after the mud season, which will be coming up probably in about 3 or 4 weeks from now till then. So with all good luck, everything will fall into place and we'll be moving forward this spring with using the grant money to take it to the next step. And again, thank God we did wait, or we would have been spending $300,000 and then probably cost them a lot more than that to remediate the problem that would have arisen.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, we had at the last meeting a vote of 5-0 to send a letter to the state police. I have the letter here. It was to Colonel Asuncio. Please accept this letter as an introduction of the town of Foster's Councilman Gordon Rogers and Councilwoman Cheryl Hors. At the February 8, 2018 Town Council meeting, the motion to obtain a proposal for services provided was approved. Please advise to the next steps in this process. We did receive a letter back from Colonel Asuncio. Dear President DeFranco, I am writing to clarify a misunderstanding regarding information that has come to my attention. On Friday, February 9th, 2018, I spoke to you regarding a rumor that the Rhode Island State Police is negotiating with the town of Foster to assume law enforcement responsibilities of the Foster Police Department. This rumor is not true. The Rhode Island State Police is not contemplating any such agreement. Please pass this information along to members of the Foster Town Council. The Rhode Island State Police will continue to serve all residents of Rhode Island, but it is not our intention to assume sole law enforcement responsibilities of any police department in the state. If you have any questions regarding this matter, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, Colonel Ian Asuncio. All set? Moving on.
Are we supposed to,
No, you don't have to vote on
We don't need to vote on.
no discussion on it or anything?
If you'd like to discuss.
Well, I was curious though, of the chain of events. This is supposed to be a rumor.
Mhm.
We just, we got the letter from the colonel saying that this is a rumor. Well, was it really a rumor? Because I was actually sitting there, so let's just go with the rumor thing. I'm just curious, you have a conversation, I'm assuming this was Friday?
Yes. It was Friday the 9th. The day after our.
Because I got my emails confirming that like the rest of the council did. And if there was a conversation on Friday saying it was this letter,
Yes.
we received the letter on Monday. This was received on Monday.
She wrote it on
She
Monday.
wrote it on Monday, but it was verbal on Friday, that's
Yes,
done.
that's
It's
done.
all done.
Yes.
So why was this sent on
I
Monday?
sent the letter because there was a motion, 5-0, motion at the council to send the letter. So I sent a letter.
Okay. seems, what was the point of sending this letter?
I didn't want to take it upon myself when there was a vote taken.
Okay. Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Moving on to the Bliss report for the Portsmouth Police Department, air quality report. If you recall, December 14th, we had approved for a air quality report and a knob-in tube actually it wasn't a report, but for it to go out to bid to do an RFP. The air quality report has come back, and you have it in front of you here with some recommendations at the back.
Like you to read that? Recommendations, pretty much goes over the company that did the air quality test, and again, in the back of the page, executive summary. It explains the mold spores levels on the first and second floors in the attic were within the current safe guideline standards of 2,500 parts per cubic meter. The mold spore level in the basement exceeded the current guideline by more than that, 2 times that. The predominant molds found in all samples were Priscillium and Aspergillus. Based on these results, it's reasonable to conclude that there is little or no risk from exposure to mold spores in the offices in the attic and a slight risk in the basement. Airborne particles, skin fragments, insect fragments, plant fragments, pollen, miscellaneous debris were at tracer low levels in the offices in the attic. Miscellaneous debris levels in the basement were medium, which is rather typical in an older building. And then on the back, you'll see conclusions and recommendations. Conclusion, based on the data, it is responsible to conclude that the mold levels in the occupied sections of the building are within current safe guideline and therefore not considered a health problem for the Boston Police Department staff or visitors to the building. Clearly, the mold levels in the basement exceed the guideline. In addition, the most predominant, which I explained earlier, the two there, are known human allergens. There are also low levels of Chitonium and on the Sach trees. It is allowed to flourish, and these 2 molds can generate chronic health problems. Now, the recommendations from this was ensure that the rainwater and groundwater levels into the basement have been sealed. Moisture in the basement will encourage the fungus that I just explained. Second recommendation, the mold levels in the basement are not high enough to require further remediation at this time, but testing should be done in the spring to determine if the levels are increasing. And third, I would like to recommend ventilation upgrades, but this is impractical and very inexpensive and very expensive in a 100-year-old building. Thank you for your opportunity to assist in this matter. Please give me a call if you have any questions or you need any additional information. And that's from the principal consultant that did the test. On the knob and tube wiring, I don't know where that's.
I don't either. There was some discussion about who is responsible for the RFP, so we'll have to investigate that further.
When I talked to the chief and then I looked at this report and going back to our motion on the 14th, we said we were going to fix these 2 problems. Well, the basement is twice the amount that it's supposed to be. And right now, they're not letting people into the basement unless they wear a mask. So it is hazardous to their health if they have to go in there for files and everything unless they're wearing masks. And I think that we should address that somehow while we're still in that building.
I agree, and I agree, Cheryl, and I actually got a note here for DPW. Under the recommendations to work on that problem, it was the mold levels in the basement are not high enough to require further remediation at this time. But it was to ensure rainwater, DPW, to ensure rainwater and groundwater leaks into the basement have been sealed. So I think maybe we should have the DPW, the director just started today. I am the liaison. I will be talking to him about the rec position field, and I will also address make sure the gutters are making the water run away. If we have any other leaks, to seal them, which should remediate it. Also, I was thinking of possibly getting a dehumidifier down, maybe suggesting a dehumidifier down in the basement that collects a lot of that stuff in the filters. That would be a simple solution. There was no day-to-day work going on in the basement. There will be when the rounded tube wiring is remediated, which we're gonna address next.
Right.
So I would suggest a dehumidifier, because I'm sure with the high levels.
I think there is one in the basement already.
There is.
So-
There is a dehumidifier in the basement already.
I have a comment on the other part, the air quality too, but I don't know if you need to take questions first on that.
No,
Okay.
council comes first.
On the air quality, I think for the time being, to see how it works, we can get those air purifiers in there, one for each floor, or a couple for each floor. It wouldn't be that expensive, but it would be a start to try to get that air moving and get it, a better quality of air in the building for them while they're working. I know that there's not a lot of people in there at a time, but there are people in there, and I think that would,
We said it was fine.
no, they said that the air quality is stagnant, and that's what starts the sickness and stuff. So I think besides opening windows in the middle of winter, if we have something that can move, there are air purifiers out there that are really good, that might be able to help. And I don't think that would be a huge expense.
Do you want to make a motion to that effect?
I would. I'd like to make a motion that we purchase at least two,
We're gonna find out what they are first.
well, I know there are many out there, so I don't want it to sit here, because then we have to come back and approve it. I want it to get going, that's what we agreed to. So how should my motion go, sir?
Well, your motion, what do you want to do, two, one or two?
Well, I think there should be a couple on each floor, because there are offices and doors are closed.
Right, so I think what you do is you make a motion to have the DPW director look into purchasing two for each floor, because I think the town has a certain amount of money they can spend without it coming to a vote. So as long as it's within that parameters, you can go that way there and have him start tomorrow or Monday to look for those things. So your motion would be that you make a motion that you want to have the DPW director seek out two
Air purifiers.
air purifiers per floor, as long as they're within the amount that the town is allowed by charter to spend without having to come to a council vote.
What he said is my motion.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Chris. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm gonna read it, because for 2 floors you're talking about, this is based on, I'm reading from the report. Based on the results, it is reasonable to conclude that there is little or no risk from exposure to mold floors in the office and attic, and a slight risk in the basement. So are you ignoring the basement and just working
Well,
on?
there's a dehumidifier in there. I don't think that the air is stagnant down there. I think it's unhealthy, yes, but I don't think you put a,
What I'm trying to say is, according to the report that we spent money on, there is no risk on the 1st and 2nd floor on the mold spores, but
Right.
there is in the basement
right.
where there is a problem, but we're gonna address the area where there is no
No.
risk and ignore.
You just said you were gonna get the DPW over there to help tighten up things, seal up things, and there is a dehumidifier down there. So once those
But
things.
apparently that's not fixing the problem, because it's,
Okay, you know more about that than I, so you go ahead and you lead with that, and I will follow up. If I'm saying it wrong and I'm coming to the wrong conclusion, please enlighten me, because I would like to see it fixed. You and I both agreed, we wanted this to, we wanted this.
but the issue is, there's not a problem with the 1st floor, the 2nd floor, the attic. According to the report, the problem is the basement.
It's the air quality that I'm trying to get.
That's what this
It's
report.
stagnant. It does say that. It says that it's stagnant, that it needs movement. It needs to be,
I think that was the basement.
So
That's the
you
basement.
think that,
plus both.
It says I would like to recommend ventilation upgrades, but this is impractical and very expensive in a 100-year-old building.
Seriously.
I think that's referring to the basement.
The basement's the biggest issue because it's steel stone foundation.
so do you think that the air purifiers
Well,
would do
my
anything in the
concern is
basement?
if we're gonna spend money on an area of the building that is no risk, and
There is virtually no air circulation in the building, and fresh air makeup air is provided by leaky windows, doors, walls in the building.
The floors,
in
there is no,
the building.
correct, but the basement has no air movement at all because there is no windows and doors. So when they did the air quality test, this is, if you break it down, if you look at this page, it actually shows the areas of the building and what it came in at. And if you look at the basement, because it has attic, second floor, dispatch, squad, and basement, is completely off the charts where,
Right.
and we're spending money up here where there's no risk. And simply, the airflow problem is the basement because there are no windows and leaky doors in the basement to move the air, which hence is the high risk area.
Did you put an air dehumidifier in and put in an air purifier in the same place?
Well-
I don't think so.
Well, you could put some kind of an air duct system that would take outside air, move it around the rooms, then filter it and send it back out through one of the,
Possibly then,
through one of the cellar windows. I mean, 'cause it's clearly the problem is the basement. It clearly states there is no issues health-wise at all in the other area. Your motion is to address the areas there's no issue.
Well, I'd like to address all areas then, and if I made a mistake, I apologize, but I believe that the
You know what I'm saying?
first two floors, I understand what you're saying, so the first two floors should have some kind of air circulation in there. And in the basement, whatever it takes to make it so that they can go down there and get files and work down there, workmen can go down there, because the next thing we're talking about are the knobs and the tubes, right? So you have to have workmen go down there and work. So whatever it takes to make it safe to go down.
Chief,
Bleach, that's
Chief,
what it takes.
I'll
Bleach.
donate it.
Chief,
This is ridiculous.
excuse me, Chief, do you think the dehumidifier that is down there is large enough to accommodate?
It's probably a residential dehumidifier, that was plugged in and it runs 24/7. Again, the air purifier, I'm not sure exactly what a purifier does other than clean air, but, our issue upstairs and in the officers' area and the upstairs in administration is the stagnant air. Again, if you walk into any of the offices, it's stagnant, again, you smell it right away, you detect it right away. So our air circulation level, and again, it was referenced to, the 100-year-old, it's approaching 200 years old. So again, there's multiple issues, again, no health issues, but again, stagnant air. We've lost a lot of officers recently with, being out sick. Again, there's not good air in the building at all, period.
My point is I don't want to ignore the basement.
The basement, is obviously a moisture issue.
Right,
Very little count on
so
mold and there isn't.
for the leisure of the council,
It's a moisture issue, fieldstone foundation, it's always gonna be damp, always gonna be damp.
well, what can we do?
You can use
A
the
bigger
humidifiers,
dehumidifier,
but
a
they-
larger dehumidifier?
They probably end up running 20.
An industrial dehumidifier.
Well, I mean, basically what you got there is a residential house, and it's a residential dehumidifier. And I can understand why they put a residential dehumidifier in, because it's a formal residence,
Right.
our police station. So I just don't want to ignore the basement, because the basement is the clear problem.
Mhm.
And I didn't see that in the motion, it was specific to the other floors.
Right, so we have currently a motion on the floor and seconded to investigate the purchasing of 2 air purifiers for each floor. Now, honestly, when I heard each floor, I also thought the basement. But
I can amend that to say that, right?
I thought it was the,
Or you can amend it to get a commercial dehumidifier for the basement, so 2 for the first 2 floors,
Floors.
as Cheryl indicated, and then she can amend her motion to add like a commercial size dehumidifier for the basement, if you want to start with that and see how it goes.
Is that gonna help?
We got the attic too.
Right, and the attic as well? Because they're up there all the time too, right?
Periodically, that's our archived records and our evidence storage.
I think they're in the attic, actually more than the basement, I believe, right?
It all depends. Again, we moved, because of the conditions in the basement, we moved our archived records to the attic.
so 2 air
We need 4
purifiers
anyway. 'Cause you
for,
got basically 4 floors, the attic, second floor, dispatch squad rooms on the first floor, the basement is obviously.
that would be 8 though, because it's 2 per floor. And then,
I don't know if you need 2 for the
I-
attic, because it's
yeah.
a small
Yeah, in the
area.
end, you're gonna run into electrical issues. There's no electrical,
that one.
No, there's no, again, there's no outlets. in
The
it.
trip and breakers now.
They would have to be, it would have to be something probably residential.
You might wanna look at a handle that unit with ductwork that goes up and in, and got one power source for it. Mike, you would know more about this if you have a central system with ductwork
Excuse me, we need a
that
quiet
would
in
be
the
duct
audience,
up
thank
and
you.
down into a central system with one power source.
You'd have to have it spec out by it.
And again, that's where his recommendations say, and if you're gonna fix the problem, I would like to recommend ventilation upgrades, but it's a practical and very expensive and unreal building. But that is, we seem to be wanting to piecemeal exactly what he's recommending we do. So either you're gonna do it or you're not.
So, Mike, if you did residential air purifiers and an industrial,
I don't even know if that exists. I don't know.
residential air purifiers, it's even advertised all the time.
Little ones,
Right, I don't think
I don't know
that's.
how that would be,
Which
that wouldn't be official, right,
I don't know, does that change?
okay.
I think the motion is for the DPW.
DPW will come back with something that'll be workable for the whole thing.
We can start on that either tomorrow or Monday, and hopefully get it by next Friday and go from there.
Yes.
All right, so that's, the motion is for him to explore what needs to be done with the air purifiers and I guess maybe another dehumidifier.
Well, at least see what's available.
Right, exactly.
And we cover everything from the attic to the floor, right to the basement.
And can purchase it if it's within the amount.
Right,
yes.
That was the motion, and it was seconded.
As long as he investigates the
Right.
power issue.
Right, that's
Don't
all.
run him through it.
That'll be part of his job to do that.
So, any further discussion? Yes.
May I mention-
Could you just state your name and address? And your address.
79 Old Danielson Pike,
Thank you.
Gloucester. There's an old church, about 1845 in Whitford, that had the same problem within the last year. And what they did was to kind of put a barrier in the floor underneath, and it worked 100%, so that it's not affecting anyone in the congregation from the smell of mold or anything like that. The other thing I wanted to say, so you might want to look at other ways that you can do this besides stopping the water flow or whatever. Because sometimes the old foundations in some buildings, it's difficult to do that. Because living in Foster and living into a house that was constructed in 1786, I also have a problem with that. But I have an exhaust fan, and it's able to be contained. It's not something that is a problem if it's addressed. So I just wanted to, there are other things that are cheap, and there's other ways of doing this instead of making it a large construction problem. It can be done safely.
Thank you. Mr. Spazio?
There's such a thing as bleach in a pump sprayer, it kills mold. So once a month, when it's damp, you kill the mold.
The mold's already been remediated.
I'd keep doing it. But, I would be hesitant about the electrical load in this place.
That's our next. Right. To address. Yes.
No.
Mr. Sheldon?
I'm sorry, please forgive me for not standing. Most purifiers are particular purifiers, they just take the dust and anything that's in the air out. Doesn't make the air better. Doesn't put more oxygen into it. Those rooms are old, and they smell old, and they smell stale. Purifiers aren't gonna fix that. You just need fresh air. You gotta figure out a way to put fresh air in the building.
I think Ms. Hawes was looking for something to circulate the air. Would an air purifier not do that?
It's a big fan, just buy a fan.
So it would circulate?
Yeah, just push the air around, but you have to push it into the areas where that's getting some fresh air.
That's pushing the
Like maybe the
stair
head of the
air
stairs
around.
where the doors open once in a while. But purifiers are, again, they're particulate. They get dust out of the air, they get pathogens out of it. They'll even take, like if somebody has a cold, they'll take pathogens out of the air. But they're not gonna make the air better. I just think you might be spending money that's not gonna help you. As long as the windows are closed and the doors are closed, the air's not gonna get any better. You can put filter systems in the attic above the second floor rooms and pull bad air out, but when you do that, you're gonna pull out heated air and bring in colder air, and it's gonna cost you more to run the building. I mean, there's a downside to everything.
Thank you. You just said it. We need to, that air is stagnant, it's got pollutants in it, it's got other things in it. We need to pull them out and give them a fresher air. Yes, that is my intent. To pull them out, give them good air to breathe in when they're working, when they're in there.
Would that go back, Gordon, to what you were saying about a ventilation system? Mrs. Ryan?
It seems that there are two different issues. One is the mold in the basement, which that report said did not affect the other two floors. But that does not mean the other two floors are out of the woods. It just means that there's no mold or mildew. It's like being in an airplane. How many people get sick just traveling on an airplane because of the air quality? It's, you know, you've got a lot of people in there, they're all breathing out who knows what. So I would think that while the people have to be in that building, it is not a long-term solution, but while they have to be in there, particularly during the winter months when you cannot open the windows, and I know, you know, even when it rains hard, sometimes you can't open the windows on one side of the building because it's getting wet. At least, probably, I can't imagine, I've seen these air purifiers, you'd probably be paying $1,000 for all of this stuff. I think that, you know, for them to be comfortable while they have to be in there, do it.
Thank you. So the motion again on the floor is to let the DPW director explore purchasing 2 air purifiers for each floor with a total of 8. And adding an industrial, that was the main motion, then it was amended to add an industrial dehumidifier to the basement. So, the amended motion,
Who voted on the amended motion?
No one yet.
No one yet.
Just a motion to amend.
so motion to amend, Cheryl, that was you?
Yeah. Yes.
And who was seconded the industrial?
Second.
So the amended motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Going back to the main motion, all in favor? Opposed? It passes. And Mr. Rogers, you will be getting in touch with the DPW?
Yeah, how do we want to address the non-do wiring?
Well, it's, number one, it's not on the agenda.
That's part of
And
that
number 2,
report.
It's not on the
it's
Oh, I
not,
mean, it's not the report, but that was part of what I talked
the
about.
motion, it was part of the motion, but we do have to investigate that further. And so now that we have, it has, no one knew who was to make the RFP for that non-tuning. So it will be moving forward.
It will go forward.
It will go forward. Okay? That was the motion back in December. Moving on to new business. I received an email from Danielle Scott, who is a Recreation Committee member, in regards to the Bright Night debriefing. And it states, now that the holidays are behind us, the Recreation Committee would like to set a date for the Bright Night Committee to meet and process what we love and what we may improve to ensure its continued success. Thanks to all of you, our community has enjoyed what many would say is the quintessential old-time country Christmas experience. The Yeti Building has been reserved for 6:30 Wednesday, February 28th. If the committee agrees, Recreation will maintain the role of coordinating Bright Night. To run smoothly, however, we ask that the town council and all participating groups select a representative to attend meetings, 1 or 2 a year, and serve as a liaison between their department, group, and our committee. Is there anyone who would like to be on the liaison for the Bright Night?
It's a Wednesday, I can't.
I'd be more than willing to do that. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we appoint Denise as the liaison to the Bright Night.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Moving on, the opioid epidemic litigation memorandum. You had in your packet, this was a request from Ms. Forrest to present this. And Mr. Torchy.
I'll speak to that. This is going around the state of Rhode Island. It's going to be similar to the tobacco litigation from a number of years ago, whereas they'll have a Rhode Island-based firm, but the firms from out of state that specialize in this type of law will come in and handle it. There'll be no fee unless there's a recovery. So there's no expense to Forster. Most towns and cities are jumping on board, and it'll take the same track that the tobacco litigation did in the 90s. Whether it'll be as successful, who knows? But that's what they're trying to do. It's like a class action. So yeah, you might as well vote to join the litigation.
Do I hear a motion?
Go ahead.
Make a motion that we join in with the class action lawsuit with the other cities and towns that on the opioid epidemic litigation memorandum presented in front of us tonight.
Second.
Discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Moving on to appointment to Conservation Commission. You have an email in front of you from a Nikki Lamonica, who is interested in being on the Forster Conservation. Would someone like to read her?
I would, is it actually Nikki here, Tom?
She is.
Okay, I'm gonna read that. Dear Ms. Hill, I am ready to express my interest in joining the Forster Conservation Commission. We have recently, 6 months ago, relocated to Forster after a long search for the perfect place. I am a passionate naturalist and I've been birding in the woods for here for years. I am very excited about getting to know our community and becoming an active member. I am currently a homemaker. My husband and I have 3 children, 3 beautiful children, 9 and under. Prior to having a family, I spent 25 years managing large tracts of land. I have managed 160-acre horse farm, private, a 400-acre bird sanctuary, nonprofit, and 1,600 acres of Aspen City, New Zealand. I have worked closely with other land trusts and foundations to secure property funds for management. I do believe I would be an active and useful member of our conservation commission. Thank you for your consideration. And with that, I would like to make a motion to appoint Nikki Lamonica to the Conservation Commission.
Second.
Discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Congratulations. That concludes our agenda. Any future agenda items?
Continuing with the police station, altitude wiring.
The next meeting before,
Yes.
next meeting.
Okay, anything else? Future agenda items? No. Thank you. Anything, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah.